वो तो सब दे दिया दे दिए
Hello, good afternoon. On behalf of CMS Environment, West Bengal Pollution Control Board, West Bengal Biodiversity Board and Asta Media Management, I welcome you all to the panel discussion on challenges to biodiversity from climate change. I would now like to invite our the host of this panel discussion, Professor B.K. Datta, Chairman, West Bengal Pollution Control Board, on the stage.
I believe we all can go together.
Yeah, and our other speakers, Dr. A.K. Sanyal, Dr. Punsloke, Dr. Ashish Ghosh, Dr. Anurag Ganda, and Dr. Ajanta De. Panel discussion on challenges to biodiversity of West Bengal from climate change is part of the CMS Vatavaran Biodiversity Film Festival and Forum, which has started from December 3rd and will continue till December 7th. And it's an initiative of CMS Environment and is being organized with the support of Pollution Control Board and the West Bengal Biodiversity Board and Asta Media. And we are privileged to have the support and your participation in this program. This panel discussion is a follow-up of COP11, which was held this year in Hyderabad, and we aim to synthesize the latest knowledge, and we are trying to seek solutions to the problems, and we will discuss this through this panel discussion. I would now like to invite Professor B.K. Datta, Chairman, West Bengal Pollution Control Board, to welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, dear respected panelists, Dr. Bhaduri, Dr. Sandal, Dr. Ghosh, Dr. Day, and Canada, and friends from the media, friends from different organizations, schools and other institutions. You know that this is the first consolidated program on biodiversity in our state. Consolidated in the sense that it has both a discussion session we are holding today, and for 5 days a film festival is being held in this city, and this is the first film festival of its kind in our state. So I have the privilege to welcome you all in this panel discussion session, which is a part of this consolidated program. Now, the need of protection of biodiversity, nothing to overemphasize. Now the biodiversity all over the world, except in certain locations where they have been able to protect many of the species and take care of them. In most parts of the world, the biodiversity is at stake for a variety of reasons. And these fields, which are primarily aim at students, particularly the school students. So these films act as a very good medium for emphasizing, first of all, the colorful presentation of the biodiversity of the world, different parts of the world, and which helps the students to grow a love for the nature and biodiversity. And I greatly appreciate this attempt to hold this. There are international film festivals also on biodiversity. I believe 9 or 10 international film festivals on biodiversity have already, perhaps 9, have already been held in different countries. But in our country, there has not been any attempt to arrange any film festival on biodiversity. In that sense, it is unique, and this is the first year. And the kind of response that we have got from various quarters, the teachers, students, researchers, academicians, media, and that response is simply overwhelming. The inaugural session was held in London. That is a small hall, but it was jam-packed. So the response has been very encouraging, and I believe in the coming years this can be given a better shape, and it can reach more people, more students. And we have indeed a plan to show some of these films at the district levels, because the students in the villages and remote areas, they are not that fortunate. They are not in an advantageous position to take the things, enjoy the things which are readily available to students of a big city like Kolkata. Now this panel discussion, today's panel discussion is on challenges to biodiversity of West Bengal from climate change. Now, there is no doubt about the fact that biodiversity is at stake in most part of the world, as I told already. And the threats come from mainly 3 reasons. One is, the most important reason of destruction of biodiversity is perhaps the human beings. We are responsible for destroying biodiversity. Extinction of many species already has been done, and we are mostly responsible for that. About 3 years ago, I visited New Zealand in a conference, and I had the opportunity to see some of the places, and I saw that they are just keeping the kiwi birds. Right? They are protecting them. They are just protected species. And at one time, there are so many of them in that island, in the 2 islands, North and South Island of New Zealand. There are so many of them. Now they are a protected species. There are many such examples, and we human beings are squarely responsible for destruction of much of the biodiversity. And next comes the natural factors, natural calamities and disasters. And these natural calamities and disasters are also related to climate change, because now these natural calamities are happening at more frequently at many more places, and much more is in the pipeline, this kind of disasters. If we cannot take into account or address the climate change issues properly, but still now the issues relating to climate change, release more carbon dioxide, etc., these are till now words of mouth. Except most passionate environmentalists and some sensible people, most of the people in power, to them, this resist climate change, this is just a word. They are not at all. You know that George Bush, he didn't sign the Kyoto Protocol. He didn't sign. He kept away. Australia didn't sign. And even the Kyoto Protocol, it was the first discussion started in 1997. It took 8 more years to be effective in 2005. So this shows how serious or how the lack of seriousness there is among the world leaders. So many meetings are being held, but they do not come up with definite promises that we will do this. Some kinds of, you know, that in international meetings, some kinds of resolutions are not enforceable. Those resolutions are taken, but it is not mandated. And there are other resolutions which are mandated, and not many of the resolutions which have been in Copenhagen, many things have been, but none of the resolutions are mandatory to any of the participating countries. 50,000 people assembled there in the year 2009. But anyway, so the situation is not that good if the present trend continues. So this threat to biodiversity, if we want to prevent these threats to biodiversity, the climate change again has to be taken care of properly. So today's topic is this: how the biodiversity will be affected by climate changes in the climate, and we are not in a position to take any decision that will help changing the pattern or changing the trend, but at least we can reach it to. So this message can be taken to at least some people, and then this message can be transmitted to many more people. So this is the basic objective, and if this kind of attempt or programs are taken in many more places, then perhaps the people, they are already many people in the world, they are very concerned about it. They know what is going on. But an opinion, a very strong opinion, may be formed in different countries based on this kind of discussion at smaller level. So I believe the discussion, we have very eminent people in today's panel discussion. I believe this discussion will be very useful and enlightening and encouraging. So enjoy the speeches of the panelists, and then do more interaction, so that any questions that you audience may have are addressed. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming to the auditorium of this Pollution Control Board. We always try to extend a helping hand to people who want to conduct or organize any kind of program relating to the environment. Many people from different NGOs and other organizations, they come to us, and we always try to help them and try to work with them together closely. So in this case, CMS Vatavaran, they first met me more than about 6 months ago, and at that time we told, yes, we will work together, and we are working together. We hope that we will work with them together again in future, and to organize this kind of program on a bigger scale. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the opening address. I would now like to invite Dr. A.K. Sanyal, Chairman, West Bengal Biodiversity Board, to give the address to the August gathering. Dr. Sanyal is the former director of ZSI, and he is now an emeritus scientist there. Biodiversity Board is also our program partner and also is providing us knowledge support in this entire program. So I welcome Dr. Sanyal.
Thank you, madam. Very, very good afternoon to all of you. Honorable Professor Binoy Datta, my teacher, as well as my boss, former boss, Director Geological Survey of India, and Dr. A.K. Ghosh, Dr. Ajanta De, and Dr. Anurag Dando from WWF, and Professor Punnaslok Bhaduri from SER. Distinguished guests, teachers, if there is any student, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a great pleasure for me to be here with you today afternoon to participate in such a program, which is a very much debatable and much more discussed subject all over the world, and we are trying to make such an arrangement for discussion among yourselves with the experts, panelists, so that what Dr. Professor Datta has told, only to make aware the people to enrich their ideas, perceptions, knowledge about the climate change, its impact on biodiversity, and ultimately the pathways, to find out the pathways of the sustainable livelihood of the humankind. We know that it's a fact that conditions change across the face of the planet. Sometimes this change is very rapid, sometimes very slow, sometimes in larger increments, sometimes in smaller increments, resulting the rearrangements of biological association. If we see the past history of our Earth, Mother Earth, of this planet, that we know that already this Earth has experienced 5 episodes of extinction. So that these extinctions are natural phenomenon, and those extinctions were due to some natural calamities or for other reasons, and scientists are of opinion that we, the human being, are going to face the 6th episode, and for which the human being himself would be responsible for the loss of life on the earth. besides this natural phenomena, for the last 2 decades, we are seeing that the climate is being changed. What we call it, climate change. And this climate change is not a new phenomenon. And past history also depicts that climate is always changing. But the problem is this, the alarming situation which we are going to face, that due to this climate change, the biodiversity is being lost, which is already underway due to many of the human stresses. But presently, this climate change, its impact on biodiversity and on some other issues related to climate change, these are happening in such a pace that it is too much faster than the earlier ones. So that the scientists, they are telling it is a fact of worrying about the impact of the climate change, particularly the loss of the biodiversity. Today's program, this topic of discussion is impact of climate change on biodiversity with special reference to West Bengal. Though much studies have not yet been done on the impact of climate change on biodiversity in the state, still the climate is being changed. It's fact in the state also. The report says that the maximum temperature is being decreased and minimum temperature is being increased in our state. In hilly regions, the maximum temperature is decreased in the tune of minus 0.25 degrees Celsius, and in laterite, alluvial and coastal areas, it is in a higher rate, that is minus 0.5 degrees centigrade Celsius. And similarly, the minimum temperature is also being increased. In hilly regions, it is increased, and also in laterite, alluvial and coastal areas, the minimum temperature is being increased. That means temperature is being increased, and due to increase of temperature, the resultant effects are being observed, and it is also observed that the biodiversity is indirectly or directly being lost due to this change of temperature. And due to this change of climate, increase of temperature or decrease of temperature, the erratic rainfall, increase of precipitation, these two factors, and due to loss of habitat, due to loss of forest areas, through the data it is proved that in our state, the forest area, dense forest areas, the deep forest areas are being lost to a greater extent. And all these cumulative effects, cumulatively they are affecting the loss of biodiversity. And I'm not going into details, the different number of informations are there. The data related to the loss of biodiversity due to the impact of climate change in our state, our panelist experts are there. I hope they will discuss in detail. And in our state, Sundarban is there, very fragile ecosystem, Darjeeling Hills, hill areas are there, and in all these areas, it is proved that the climate has great effect, enormous effect on the biodiversity, and this effect is being resulted in the loss of biodiversity. So that I am not going into details with these few words. I once again welcome you in this discussion, and I hope you will participate in this program actively, and some interactive sessions we want after the deliberations of the panelists. You please try to interact with the experts so that everybody can understand clearly the impact of climate change on the loss of biodiversity in our state, and I hope that will help us to make this program a great success. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir, for elaborating on the subject. We have now our next speaker, Dr. Punyasloke Bhaduri. He is an assistant professor, Department of Biological Science, IISER. He is an MSc in Marine Resource Development and Protection from Heriot-Watt University, UK, and he also has a PhD in Marine Microbiology Ecology from Plymouth Marine Laboratory. He has won several awards, including prestigious Commonwealth TSID Scholarship and International Arctic Science Committee Award. And he was also the team leader of the winter phase of 3rd Indian Arctic Expedition of 2010. Dr. Punyasloke Bhaduri will moderate this session, so he will take the program forward. Welcome.
Thank you so much for this kind introduction. We'll get this panel started, actually the discussion started, and we are very lucky to have 3 eminent panelists among us who are going to give their view of what is going on, what the threats are of climate change and biodiversity, and what are the mitigation measures that we can undertake to kind of reduce these effects of climate change. And once the 3 panelists have given their views, shared their thoughts with us, then we'll open this forum for discussion. We hope to have a lot of questions coming from the audience, and the panelists are going to answer some of those questions, and then ultimately we are going to end up or synthesize what we have gained after this discussion. So it gives me a great pleasure today actually to welcome and introduce our first panelist, Dr. Ashish Kumar Ghosh. Dr. Ashish Kumar Ghosh is the former director of the Zoological Survey of India, and he is the founding director of Center for Environment and Development, Kolkata. He had his education at the University of Calcutta and University of Wisconsin-Madison, USA. Dr. Ghosh is a recipient of several awards, including the Fulbright Scholarship, the Rockefeller Foundation grantee. Between 1992 and 1996, he has led Indian delegation to the conference in Ramsar Convention in Japan, Indo-Russia Forest Meet to Russia, IUCN General Assembly meet in Argentina. He has served as a member of the National Biodiversity Authority, Government of India, and also served as a member of the Working Group for the 11th 5-year Plan on Environment and Biodiversity Planning Commission and Government of India. He is a visiting faculty at the School of Environment Studies in Jadavpur University and also at the Department of Human Rights in University of Calcutta. He's also serving as a member of the Sectoral Committee on Climate Change and Sundarbans, Government of West Bengal, and has published more than 350 papers from 10 countries, including 25 monographs and books. And today Dr. Ghosh is going to give his view on adaptation to climate change based on agrobiodiversity for food security. Let us welcome Dr. Ghosh.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all the kind words to the moderator, to the chairman and everyone who is present here. This is the first film festival on biodiversity that I have attended, at least in the city. That's why it's definitely very, very worthwhile. The subject topic, could you please see the challenging? There's a word called challenging. The subject topic that I am speaking is not a theoretical subject area. It is something which we have been practicing. It's an experience gained over the last 2 years. And since with the experience of nearly 50 years of my professional life, what we are trying to do today is not to borrow some technology from outside for what we would not have said that mitigation. No, I am more for adaptation rather than to mitigation. Mitigation requires new technology which is expensive, but adaptation may be easier if you have the traditional knowledge and the means and the scientific background to adapt something which is important. Now, all of us know that, and it looks like that every three panelists, all the three panelists will be speaking on the Sundarban as the area. Now, those of you who know that the area which is unique in its own ecological setup, and for the last number of years, a lot of researchers, very prominent researchers, academicians, they have worked in this. This is what this Sundarban is all about 5 million people, 4.8 billion, or a little over 4.8 billion. And it is a matter where the community development blocks are located in 19 blocks in 2 districts of Sundarban. Some of the blocks are not in the water area but in the land area, the other blocks in the water area which are called islands. There are 50 odd islands where the people live, and those are the people who are the most vulnerable people in the era of climate change, and that's internationally recognized. Go to that 2007 IPCC report, 4th report, this has been marked very well. Okay, next one please. Can I have this?
Next slide.
If you look at the map of Sundarban, there is a green line which we have drawn. This is the area which we have tried to do something as a challenge to the climate change. Can you cope up with that? Ladies and gentlemen, those of us who are from this area, we all know in 2009, 29th of May, there was the last big storm surge in Sundarban, cyclonic storm surge, which is called Ida. In one day, half of Sundarban agricultural land becomes salinized. Thousands of people lost their home. Well, quite a large number of unaccounted wildlife was washed out, but Dr. Anurag Gandot can be giving more evidence. But what happened in Calcutta, within few hours after Sundarban was struck by 120 kilometer velocity of the storm surge, Calcutta was without power for 3 days. 53 people were killed, 3,000 trees were uprooted, just 1 day of activity. Calcutta and Sundarban distance about say 80 kilometers nearest point, but if you consider that Calcutta is not safe because Sundarban had the first burnt off so-called impact of climate change on the weather condition, and then Calcutta was the second sufferer. But here the story goes to Sundarban. Well, when the half of Sundarban went without any agriculture next year, 2010, we at our center and in a society called Society for Environmental Development, we decided to do something. And I was very disturbed, extremely disturbed, because I feel personally what I am today is because the taxpayers' money that my country has paid for me. I am very clear about it. That's the reason I didn't settle down in the United States or any other country. This is very simple. I would like to come back and work for my people, work for my country. It may sound very cliche, but it is what the fact is. Now, I wandered over this, and then I rang up one of my very brilliant associate, Dr. Dev, who has been working on the rice varieties of West Bengal for last more than 15 years. I asked him, is there anything, Dev, that we can do for these people where the salt-affected land can be utilized for growing rice? And it was Dev's prompt response. Within few days, he gave me a list of 6 varieties of rice, and those are all Bengali names, some named after river, some named after Daniel Hamilton, some have got other connotations. I am coming to the story. Very interesting story. It's a real life story of 2010, and we are in 2012. The next one, please. Next one. That green line is the area where we started working. The previous slide. Yeah. You have seen that the area of Sundarban has got many caps to wear. It is a World Heritage Site, it is a Biosphere Reserve, it is a Tiger Reserve and whatnot. But with all this, the next one please, we can see that Sundarban is also under the Coastal Zone Regulation Act. It is a critically vulnerable area that has been recognized by the international body. So the next one please. The concept of sustainable development, if I take, is something which can, well, the society has to do something with regard to the standard of living. I think it's called the standard of living is being challenged, quality of life is being challenged because of climate change. Latest threat to humanity, Dr. Ashok Sharma talked about the 6th biodiversity loss that is going on, but that biodiversity loss is something to do with the climate change. That unholy alliance between biodiversity and climate change has now been very well established. The next one please. The reports of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change I have mentioned to earlier, it talks about 2 ways how to combat climate change. One is mitigation, one is adaptation. We are taking the path of adaptation. Let's take the next one. While mitigation calls for change in the current technologies, adaptation to climate change is to ensure sustainability and future security of life. The next one please. The major global concern over the phenomenon of the climate change has now been, well, one has led to India, amongst others, to launch a mission called the National Action Plan on Climate Change. Since the morning I haven't heard anyone mentioning this, that my country, our country, India, is the lead country in the developing countries world who has got a National Action Plan on Climate Change. Please do remember, Dr. Manmohan Singh, our own Prime Minister, is the leader of the National Action Plan. It has got 8 different missions. And under these 8 different missions, we have got one mission called Sustainable Agriculture. Very rightly thought about agriculture as a part of climate change issue. Okay, we are here talking about the agriculture and food security. The next one please. Next one please. Now, as I said, it is inhabited by about people in 50 inhabited islands, and this one single day, I repeat, showed what amount of devastation can be caused in the 50% of the island area. We have got very senior person here, the former Joint Director of the Sundarban Development Board in the audience. He is much more knowledgeable, much more conversant with the topic that we are discussing about. Well, this picture is being taken from WWF document, which Dr. Anurag Thonda must be showing something about it. This is a picture of devastation, and this devastating picture talks about something very ominous side. The next one. Large-scale migration of the male, what are the impacts, social impact? Male members in search of livelihood, trafficking of girls. Till today, I do not have a single report how many girls have been lost since 2009 from Sundarban, which is an ongoing process, but the momentum that has been gained is something unprecedented. And the third one, heavy debt burden. How many people are having how many extra debt on their head? I have been going to Sundarban every month. I am quite familiar with the scenario, and I have seen people wiping their tears, selling off the only cow they have after Ida because they have to pay back the debt, they have borrowed money from other people. Here, there is in the village culture, there is this excellent village culture. When there is flood, if you are safe, your relations from other parts, they all come and take shelter in your place. You don't have the means to feed them. You borrow money. After the flood is over, the people go back, but you are left with the burden of debt. And then you sell your only cow. And this, when I saw, I was so moved that how the people are affected after Ida, when you thought everything is over. It is not over. The next one. In such a scenario, using micro-planning, now I come what we can do to propagate seeds of salt-tolerant rice varieties could meet the challenge with the Green Revolution. Most of the traditional seed varieties have become rare or extinct. I have asked Dr. Swaminathan, the very famous man, once, with all your ingenuity and intelligence, sir, why did you never thought of saving the farmer's seeds in the farmer's land? Why it is something, it has to go to minus 20-degree temperature, cryogenic gene bank, which is imitation Western model, and then when the farmers need the seed, they don't get the seed. He couldn't answer my question, very loud and clear. So what we have been doing for the last 15 years is to bring back the seeds, traditional seeds, back to the farmer's field, but our aim was not, we never thought about salt-tolerant varieties. We never knew about how many salt-tolerant varieties were there. The next one, please. Now, our Society for Environment Development is completely voluntary. It is a part of the Center for Environment Development, and in such salt-tolerant varieties we spend quite a bit of time. I have one advantage, being I was the Minister of Environment and Forest, so I had the advantage of knowing a lot of people. So I wrote to the National Board of Plant Genetic Resources, sent an urgent message. Can you give us, out of the 6 varieties of rice, any seed that you may be having? Think about, they have got 65,000 seed varieties under 20 minus 20 degree temperature. They are the largest seed bank in the country. If you don't know, go and visit them. The director of the institute, after a few days, he immediately sent back a mail and said, give me some time. Then he said, out of 610, only 2 varieties, seed samples are available with us. But as a rule, we cannot spare the seeds to you. But as an exceptional case, we are happy to send you 100 grams of seeds by courier service. I remember the day when the courier service arrived. But in the meanwhile, we have been able to collect a small quantity of seeds from my colleague, Dr. Devoldev, from my erstwhile batchmate, Vice Chancellor of Calcutta University, Professor Rotin Ghosh. I am grateful to each one of them because without their help, to collect the seeds was not a possible phenomenon. So finally, we are landed up with 5 different types of seeds, and then came the question of microclimate. The next one. The experiment that could only be started in May 2011 is now showing result. Has been showing result. The salt-tolerant varieties have successfully grown and survived even after 10 days of rainfall. The field work was supported by the National Council of Rural Institute, Hyderabad. Now this is something a national institute can do of support. A small little grant is not a large grant at all. We all did voluntary work. None of us accepted any money. The money that we spent is to have the farmers field support system. And it is the farmers of 5 different areas, thanks to our collaborators. Dr. Anurag Tondo, head of WWF, he was head of Sundarban program, now he has got more caps to wear. But then we had the other gentleman, Labour Society for Rural Development, Kushal Kanjilal and his group. We have got the 3rd group, Lutheran and Old Services, right? We have got the 4th group, Youth Development Center in Sandesh Khali. We have got the 5th group, Poshim Shidor Kati Jonakollan Shongo. How many of you have heard the name? But they are doing wonderful work in Hingolganj, the farthest corner of Sundarban. I have been so privileged to know these people, not only the organization head, but also the common people who are working the organization. More than 500,000 people are attached with them, and their penetration level is so good that we, the city-based people, thought the only way to get to them is through the organization network. So we established the network, we brought the seeds, we conveyed the farmers' need, make them understand, and then what is the result, what you are getting out? In other words, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first time in West Bengal at least, and I got a very, very unsolicited letter from the chairman of the Plant Varieties Protection Authority, Government of India, that this is an excellent piece of work. How did you conceive this? The next one, please. By December 2011, the amount of seeds multiplied through collective efforts, and now, when I prepared this, I said it may enable us to go to 10 times more area. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy to say, this is December 2012, we have gone to 10 times more area. And if everything goes all right, hopefully, by 2013, we can scale up to 30 times more area. We don't have to bother any further. Farmers have taken the seeds. They are saving the seeds. They are putting the seeds in their own care. They are distributing the seeds to other farmers. And this is what we wanted. This is exactly what we wanted. That how you can combat climate change by giving that knowledge, and it is farmers' material. Then the authority wrote to me, why not we register the seeds? I wrote back, in whose name? NDEM, Society for Environment Development. Dr. Ashish Ghosh. No, no way. We can never claim. So who devised this seed? Who developed these seeds 100 years back? We don't know their name. So Talmugur, Nona Bokra, Lal Getu, Shada Getu, Hamilton and Matala, 6 names. These have become so commonly known to us that who developed, we don't know who is the father of this seed. But now I propose that let it be registered in the name of Farmers Community of Sundarban, not anyone's name. Right? We are waiting to get it registered because we need 2.5 kg of seed to send to Delhi to get it registered. Well, the next one please. It's a simple human story. Look at this is a real life picture. It's not a picture taken from any document. This is how the salt-tolerant rice varieties has come up. The next one please. Well, you have seen those earthen pots. Those are the places where the seeds are being saved. We don't go for cryogenic preservation, minus 20 degree high profile laboratory. We say put it in the earthen pot, let it be open to the air and the sunlight, let the seeds survive, and please take it back to the field every 2 years if you don't have use at this point of time. So each area will try to establish a seed bank which they have and offer limited seeds to farmers affected by the salinity with an agreement. Now this is interesting. We don't want to sell the seeds. We didn't buy the seed, we don't want to sell the seed. What do you want? We want you to take the seed free of cost, make a verbal agreement that on return we'll be giving double the amount of seed to you. To whom? To the farmer seed bank. Not to me, not to NDEV, not to Kolkata, in their own locality. And the system has been started. We have started that system. And farmers are looking after this. The next one. The monthly visit of NDEV team, what we are doing, and farmers being opened up a process of effective dialogue between the community and the technical team volunteers. The next one. A manual on the local language has been published. সুস্থায়ী ধান চাষ, বইটার নাম বাংলায়, সেটা আমাদের অর্গানাইজেশন থেকে বের করা হয়েছে। যে চাষিরা পড়তে পারেন না, যে চাষি পড়তে পারেন, who is literate, he can read the book to other চাষি, so that in a community meeting everyone can learn.
Can you repeat the name, please?
Yeah, well, সুস্থায়ী ধান চাষ is a book. সুস্থায়ী ধান চাষ, Sustainable Rice Farming, is a book which I requested them all to write, which is very quickly obliged me. I edited that book. It has been published by NDEV, Society for Environment and Development, and that book has been distributed to the farming community all over the areas where we are working. Alternative to such adaptation would be to relocate population of more than 1 million from the active delta to the more stable areas, which Dr. Anurag Tondo, when he talks about delta vision, I am glad there is a sequence of this talk. If I talk about it, maybe his talk should have come first. I didn't know the sequence. But then he must be talking about what the group identified regarding future problem of Sundarban in 2050, what are the alternatives. Well, to me, shifting 1 billion people voluntarily by cajoling, by boxing, we are not China. We are a democracy. It is just not possible, that is I believe. But making them adapt, making them equipped with the knowledge, with the material. And because everyone, 550 people, I repeat this figure, farmers pit, I ask, how many of you would like to go away from Sundarban? If I give you 1 million Indian rupee, 10 lakh টাকা দেবো, আপনার জমি ছেড়ে চলে যাবেন। জিএসটি ছিল কোথা থেকে দেবেন? আমরা বললাম 5,500 কোটি টাকা, 5,500 crores to rebuild the embankment. Government of India has sanctioned. Let us think about, can we do something? Leave the nature to nature and let the people go away from that particular part. None of them raise their hand. 10টা আইলা এলে পড়ো, এখানেই মরবো, বাপ পিতৃপুরুষের ভিটে এটা ছেলে স্যার একজন হাত তুলে মিত্রবীজকে হেসে বলেছিল টাকাটা নেবো কিন্তু জমিটা রাখবো। যাকে I am sharing with you the real life story. Okay, the next one. Well, this is a line which I have talked about, and Dr. Tondo will be talking about it further, that what is the biosphere district area that we are proposing. I was a part of the team which he is going to present, that there is a biosphere area which should be left without man's intervention, but I am not dwelling on that subject area. The next one. Lessons learned from the study shows that emphatic need to change over to ecological agriculture using indigenous rice seeds from chemical agriculture, and which is based on hybrid varieties. So we are arguing for a complete shift. That's perhaps the only way to face the challenges of sustainability in food security. I think that's the last slide, ladies and gentlemen. Is that it will reduce the input cost and provide ecological benefit, sustain net farm income, and nurture what you call agro-biodiversity. Biodiversity I have followed all through my life. There is wild biodiversity, there is domesticated biodiversity, there is agricultural biodiversity, all types of biodiversity what you use. Agricultural biodiversity is a part of domesticated biodiversity. Like the animals, the cows, there are 22 breeds, the buffaloes, there are 16 breeds, sheep, there are 12 breeds, we can go on giving the number. Each one of them is a manipulation. the green beneficiation. But here in the wild something else is there. In this discussion we didn't bring in wild biodiversity. I deliberately dwelt on the, well, what we call agrobiodiversity, the knowledge derived out of agrobiodiversity, what you have used in particular. Yeah, the next one. Well, that's the end of it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for a very patient hearing. To the organizers, when I saw 10 minutes had been allocated, I was very, very upset and angry. I said, you have never asked me how much time do I want. And if you are inviting me, a man with old white hairs, person demands that you ask me, sir, if you accept our invitation, how much time do you want? Well, I am imposing. Yes, I am imposing. Because I cannot at 10 minutes time stop this discussion and say, okay, 10 minutes is up, so let's stop the discussion. Then the flavor of the discussion is gone. Thank you once again, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ghosh, for linking adaptation with agrobiodiversity. This is very, very important in the changing scenario of climate change. We'll move to our next distinguished speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Anurag Danda. Anurag did his master's degree in sociology and social anthropology from North Bengal University. And since 1998, he has been working in the Sundarbans on various assignments in environment and development sectors. In 2005, he was charged with the responsibility of initiating WWF India's Sundarbans program and is currently the head of Sundarbans Landscape. In 2007, Anurag was awarded PhD in Technology and Sustainable Development by the University of Twente in Netherlands, and his PhD thesis was on Sundarbans, and the title was Surviving in the Sundarbans. He also heads WWF India's climate change adaptation program and has implemented a number of community forestry, education, energy access, conservation, livelihood, and climate change adaptation projects in the Sundarbans. And today, Dr. Danda is going to talk about plan for Gangetic Delta with respect to Sundarban Delta vision. Dr. Anurag Danda.
Thank you, Dr. Baduri. Very kind words. It's slightly overwhelming, not because of the large audience, but because Dr. Ghosh, my previous speaker, is not only my teacher, I have multiple relationships with him. We continue to work together and we continue to disagree. This speaks of the quality of my previous speaker. I remain grateful. Through my presentation, I will continue to disagree. Nevertheless, as the background document that was circulated and that is also part of the folder, it is well recognized that we are actually concerned about climate change and its impact on various aspects of life, including biodiversity, is because of the negative consequences it has on us. Nothing more, nothing less. Dr. Sannal said, this planet has seen a number of extinctions where humans had nothing to do. We are primarily concerned because it is our lives, the way we know it, the way we use biodiversity, the way we use the natural resources are at stake, and therefore we are concerned. As Dr. Ghosh talked about agrobiodiversity, if this agrobiodiversity were not to be nurtured, as he said, we are headed for a bad time. Period. Nothing more, nothing less. Dr. Sannal, in his welcome address, talked about two things to which I will come back to. One was the diurnal temperature difference is decreasing. It's important to bear in mind. And the other thing, he said, impact of climate change on biodiversity is something that we know very little about. I am not a biologist. I'm a practitioner. I've been working with WWF for about 8 years now. So my knowledge is based on my work. However, I can appreciate that yes, there is very little that we understand so far as impact on climate change. I'll come back to it during my presentation. So as I said, I was asked to speak about a plan for the area or Sundarbans that Dr. Ghosh has talked about. The IPCC report has been talking about the Sundarbans because of its uniqueness and so on and so forth. And I will start with, in order to meet the challenges of climate change on biodiversity and to have a plan for that, I'll get into the debate of adaptation versus mitigation in a while. Then I will start with what we know and what we don't know, and therefore what the consequences are. Next slide, please. These are the things that we know that's happening. We know that sea level is rising. We know we have lost land despite accretion. We've lost land in the Sundarbans. We've lost land in the forested areas. We've lost land in the inhabited areas. This is the figure of the net land loss that has happened in the Sundarbans in the recent past. We also know that the frequency of high intensity events, particularly the severe cyclone and higher, is increasing despite the fact that overall the frequency of high intensity weather events is actually falling over the Bay of Bengal. We also know that the surface water temperature is rising. We also know that there is a decrease in pH, making water more acidic, and therefore has its own consequences on aquatic organisms, especially the ones that have to build scales and shells. An increase in saline blanks and mudflats. The graph on the top corner shows the decrease in forest area in the Sundarbans over a very relatively short period. There has been talk that Sundarbans is not policed enough, despite the fact that it has a number of hats of being a biosphere reserve, a tiger reserve, a World Heritage Site, and so on and so forth. I work very closely with the Forest Department, and I have realized, yes, there is violation of the various restrictions, but not to the extent that it is made out to be. One. And two, a lot of this forest cover has been lost due to the saline blanks and salt pans that have been created in place where earlier vegetation used to exist, and this is a consequence of the rising sea levels. So this is what we know. Next one, please. It looks like a tiger. Essentially, this is the biodiversity of the Sundarbans if you look at the image very closely. It has the tiger, it has the landscape, it has the birds, it has the small creatures, it has almost everything. Dr. Shandal is here, Dr. Ghosh is here, and there are many others who have worked together to create this report called the State of Art Biodiversity Report. It is yet to be published, but it's very near publication. However, we know an inventory of what is there in the Sundarbans. What we do not know is the state of the biodiversity that this geographical space harbors. The reason this slide looks like this is deliberate. The white space represents ignorance so far as impacts of climate change is concerned. What we know is already very generalized. It's not the lacuna of the scientific organizations or the scientists themselves. There are two things at play to my mind why the situation is such. One, we were late in realizing that climate change is upon us. We were late in anticipating that our activities would result in something like this. And therefore, we've not really bothered to keep a database that could be used as a baseline. So the reason of our ignorance is the absence of a baseline. Dr. Bhaduri himself has attempted, along with his students, to at least study the impact of climate change on phytoplanktons. Unfortunately, he hasn't gotten very far. He's made new discoveries. He's talked about new phytoplanktons having colonized parts of Sundarbans that had not been reported earlier or reported very scantily. But he could not get very far because he did not have figures to compare with from the past. The other reason is access to the forested part of Sundarbans had been a challenge for the scientists for a very long time. However, I'm happy to kind of announce that those days are gone. The forest department, the officials, the way the administration works is a changed regime. And as I said, Dr. Ghosh and I tend to disagree on many things. This was also one point he had told me that they are a barrier. Yes, they were a barrier, but the barrier is now down.
Good to know.
Next one, please. As I said, we were late in waking up to the challenge that climate change is upon us and our way of life is bringing about this change. And therefore, the gravity of the challenges goes either unrecognized, as I have mentioned, and we do not have proactive measures, we are reactive. Dr. Ghosh referred to the National Action Plan on Climate Change, which is the only document of its kind from a developing country. That document has 8 missions, very important, all of them, undoubtedly. One major geographical area that does not find mention in that document and amongst the missions is the vast coastline of India.